as I'm recording this, it was literally just a few days ago that people in Canada who had their money in a bank, found their assets frozen by the government, so that in a sense, they weren't their assets anymore. Or so the point of assets is that they are available to you, and they were no longer available. I can say a whole lot about what my political views are on that. That's not what it won't do any good for me to talk about that. But the reason I bring that up is because under normal circumstances, when we put money in our bank, we have a confidence that it will then be available to us, right? I mean, that's the arrangement. Paul talks about an even better arrangement. This is in 2 Timothy chapter 1. Let's look at verse 12. That is why I am suffering as I am. And that refers back to the fact that he is appointed a herald, an apostle, and a teacher. And as a result of his effort and work in those areas, he was in prison. That's why I'm suffering as I am. Yet this is no cause for shame. In other words, I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not carrying shame. And then he says a very beautiful thing that contains a promise even for us. Because I know whom I have believed and am convinced that he's able to guard what I've entrusted him until that day. Well, it's for us in our world, this is almost a little bit of a banking illusion. Well, it's way more important than banking. And oh, by the way, yeah, there were banks in Paul's day, but most people didn't bank their currency because, don't forget, it was still quite a bit of a barter society. So cash, there was no paper cash, it was only the currency of coins, and it was just the raw gold, silver. Those were the two primary things, that precious metals that carried a person's wealth. And so, yeah, safe to say most people kept their own money where they felt it was safe. But, money trail. I know, Paul says, whom I have believed. Now that's an interesting thing. And here's why I find it interesting. I know whom I have believed. Think about what that means. It's not, I know I have believed in this person. No. It's not, I know it's right for me to believe. No. It's, I know the one whom I have believed. Now, this word know is it's a bigger word than it might look like. I've talked about this before, but I'm going to revisit it again. This word is used back in the gospel account of Joseph taking Mary as his wife. And then the gospel writer says, and this is the old King James Version, but he knew her not. Now, more modern translations say, but they had no relations. How did that get out? How did they pull that out of no? He did not know her. He knew her not. I mean, I remember as a kid going, what is up with Joseph? What, you don't remember this chick? That's not what it's about. That word to know means not just have data regarding. It's not to know about, because on the one hand, there was a period of my adult life and a period of my grade school life where Abraham Lincoln was a very intriguing figure to me, and I read several biographies of him. Now, not the 5 or the big volume series but just more simple biographies, and I still have a very high regard for him as both an individual and a leader. But it wouldn't be right for me to say, oh, I know Abe Lincoln. No, I know a good bit about Abe Lincoln. Probably the truth is not a whole lot more than you know about him. But there's a difference between knowing about anything, especially a person, and knowing the person. Paul didn't say, oh, and I know all about this one that I have believed. No. He said, I know whom I have believed. And I know it may feel like I'm pounding a point and squeezing blood out of a turnip, but here's the deal. There's a vast difference in knowing about someone and having a relationship with them. And although it's not the point, although it may be part of the point and a significant part of the point of what Paul wrote, is that he had this relationship with, and the one that he had believed was Christ, was Jesus. He knew him. He didn't just know about him. Wow. How do we get there? Because Jesus is not going to, ring my doorbell and come on in and hang out with me so I can get to know him, and that won't work. Because I love reading the Gospels. First of all, I love the narrative aspect, right? I'm a story guy. I love that. And as I read the narratives of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, I come to know about Jesus. And the more I read and study them, the more I know about him. But that's not what Paul's talking about. How do you and I know him? Now, bear in mind that in this regard, we're very much like Paul. Paul is like us. The physical Jesus was not present for Paul to interact with and come to know. So he somehow had to get to know Jesus, not know about, but get to know Jesus on the deepest, most intimate level. How do you do that? In a word, experience. The more I make, the harder I try to figure out how do I tell you how to know Jesus on this intimate, personal level, the more fuzzy and complicated I make it. It comes down to this. Well, no, let me rephrase that. It might come down to this being part of it. When I got to know my wife, Debbie, I knew about her. I knew she was beautiful. I knew she had a wonderful soprano voice. I knew she was smart. But when I got to know her, the way I got to know her was through interaction and experience with her. Most of that was through conversation. We shared. That was one of the best times of my life, was getting to know her, not just know about her. And we did it through interaction. So for that to happen, it took time, intention, effort, among other things. I believe these things are required if I want to know the one whom I believed. To know Jesus is going to take time. And it begins with knowing about him, but then it moves on to dialogue with him. Now, this is hard because, for me, I'll just put it in these terms. I have never heard Jesus in a conversation with me. I mean, I pray every morning and throughout the day, but I've never heard him literally talk with me. There's an old church song, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own. Well, only in a metaphorical sense. I have never literally heard Jesus talk to me. But I have, and this is symbolically, I have heard him as I read, especially the New Testament. And I read the Old Testament too. His voice is there. His words are there. Do you have a Bible that is a red letter edition where all the words of Jesus are printed in red? That's good. I mean, Jesus didn't say to the, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and oh, by the way, guys, when you quote me, you need to get that in red. No, it was added actually pretty recently. But what he said is what he said. And if I'm going to have this interactive relationship with him, I have to know what he said. Okay, you can, but it's not, it's not like, when I sit down with a good friend over a cup of coffee, we just naturally begin talking back and forth. It's not, golly, I wish it was. And yet, if I apply myself, I seek his voice, it's there to be found. And there's another way that has to be informed by what he said, his design, his will, and you find that all the way through. It's not just the red letters, right? Okay. The other way is due to a gift that he chose to give us, and that is his very own Spirit, the Holy Spirit, who lives, abides, dwells in us. I'm going to reemphasize, I've never heard literal words. I've never literally heard the voice of Jesus, and that's not what I'm talking about. But I am talking about, I have had moments where I sensed, I think that's Jesus poking me, prompting me, sometimes dragging me, sometimes shoving me, because my attention is hard to get. But to know him, Paul in Philippians said, I want to know him. It was his ambition. He didn't just wind up knowing, wow, I don't know how that happened. No. All right, so here's in the last 10 seconds. Is to know him your ambition? We're going to come back to this again next time on So Care with Stevie Boy.